Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a complex and often misunderstood topic, the authority of the Pope. Is he an absolute monarch whose every word is law? Or is his role something else entirely? Many of us have this image of an all-powerful papacy, but what the Catholic Church actually teaches might really surprise you. Today, we're diving deep into what's called the minimalist position. Okay, let's get right into it by looking at two competing views, the minimalist and the maximalist positions. Now, the maximalist view, that's the one you often see in movies. It pictures the Pope as an absolute ruler who can basically act alone and is the sole source of infallible teaching. But the minimalist view? It's a totally different picture. It sees the Pope as acting with the Church, morally bound to consult the bishops, and completely unable to go against the faith of the whole Church. These are two vastly different ways of seeing the Pope's role.
And this brings us to the central question, doesn't it? Is the Pope a monarch or a minister? Is he an oracle or is he a guardian? That's really the heart of this entire debate.
So this maximalized image of an almost all-powerful Pope is everywhere, both inside and outside the Church. But is it actually accurate? To find the real answer, we have to go back to the source, to the one document at the very center of this whole thing.
All right, let's head back to the First Vatican Council in 1870 and a document called Pastor Aeternus. This council was specifically called to define the Pope's authority. So, its teachings are at the absolute heart of this entire debate.
And here it is. This is probably the most controversial line in the entire document. It says that papal definitions are binding of themselves and not from the consent of the Church. Now, reading that on its own, well, it sounds incredibly maximalist, doesn't it? It seems to say the Pope is this isolated figure who doesn't need the Church at all.
But wait a minute, we can't just read that one line in a vacuum. To understand what they really meant, we have to look at the official explanation that the bishops heard right before they voted on this very text. As always, context is everything. And the key here is a speech, the Relatio, given by Bishop Vincent Gasser. Now, he was the official spokesman for the committee that drafted the text. His job was to explain its precise meaning to all the Council Fathers. His speech is basically the official interpretive key to what Vatican I intended. And right out of the gate, Gasser just shuts down this idea of an isolated pope. He says, we do not separate the pontiff from the Church. And then he uses this fantastic analogy. The Pope is the foundation, and the Church is the building. Think about it. You can't separate a foundation from the building it holds up. The foundation exists for the building, not the other way around. So the crucial point here is something called collegiality. The Pope and the bishops together form a single body, a single college. So even when the Pope acts in a special way, he's always acting as the head of the body, not as some disconnected entity floating above it. His actions are always meant to be in union with the whole Church.
Now, what's really interesting is that Gasser makes another absolutely critical distinction, this time between divine inspiration and divine assistance. They might sound similar, but they are not the same thing at all. And honestly, confusing these two ideas is the source of so many misunderstandings.
Okay, so inspiration. That's a positive gift. It's when God breathes new truth into someone, like he did for the authors of the Bible. Gasser is crystal clear. The Pope does not have this. He doesn't get new revelations from heaven. Divine assistance, on the other hand, is a negative protection. It's like a divine guardrail or a safety net that just prevents the Pope from formally teaching error when he defines a matter of faith and morals for the whole Church. It's a shield, not a source of new information. So what about that controversial phrase, not by the consent of the Church? Well, Gasser explains it was a very specific legal rebuttal to a particular heresy called Gallicanism. Gallicanism claimed that a pope's definition needed formal legal approval from the bishops to be valid. The council rejected that legal requirement. But, and this is a huge but, Gasser immediately adds that the moral consent of the Church, the actual faith held by everyone, is a rule of faith that the Pope himself has to follow. He can't just make things up. And here's the thing. This minimalist interpretation wasn't just Gasser's personal take. It was almost immediately confirmed by the Church's leadership. In fact, let's look at what the bishops and the Pope himself said in the years right after the council. It's pretty amazing. So just 1 year after Vatican I, there was a lot of confusion. To clear things up, the Swiss bishops issued a letter to their people, and in it, they state very clearly that the Pope, both before and after the council, always acts in consultation with the Church. He's going to ask for advice, he's going to study tradition, he has a moral duty to find out what the faith of the Church actually is. And here is the absolute clincher. Pope Pius IX, the very pope who was reigning during Vatican I, he read what the Swiss bishops wrote and gave it his official stamp of approval. He literally called their explanation the true meaning of the council's teaching and had it published as his own. I mean, you can't get a clearer confirmation than that.
Fast forward a few years, the German government, led by Otto von Bismarck, started using a maximalist caricature of the papacy as an excuse to persecute Catholics. So, in response, the German bishops put out a powerful declaration, completely rejecting the idea that Vatican I had turned the Pope into an absolute monarch. And once again, just like before, Pope Pius IX responded directly. He wrote to the German bishops and praised them, saying their explanation presented the truly Catholic understanding. So that's twice, in the immediate aftermath of the council, that the Pope himself stamped his approval on this minimalist, non-autocratic view as the authentic one.
Now, this understanding of papal authority, as a guardian of unity and not some lone creator of doctrine, this is not some modern idea, not at all. In fact, it has incredibly deep roots that go way, way back into the early church.
Take this example from the 7th century, over 1,200 years before Vatican I. At a council in Rome, we have this bishop from the East, Stephen of Dore, testifying that the See of Rome has this unique authority to rule and preside, to heal divisions and authoritatively settle disputes for the whole church. This idea of a final court of appeal, a guardian of unity, it's always been there.
Okay, so when we strip away all the caricatures and look at the actual documents, the official explanations, and the history, what's the authentic picture of the papacy that emerges? Well, in short, the minimalist view, which, as we've seen, is actually the view taught at Vatican I, presents a pope whose authority is limited, not absolute. It's collegial, not isolated. His infallibility is a shield to protect the faith, not a power to invent new doctrines. He is the guardian and servant of tradition, not its creator, a minister, not a monarch. So why does all this matter? Well, because it presents a vision of the papacy that is both robust in its authority and deeply humble in how it's exercised. It avoids the extremes. This leaves us with a final thought to consider. If this limited, guarding office is the authentic one, how does that change the way you see the Pope's role in the Church today?